When I pick up prescriptions at the pharmacy, it takes all of 60 seconds to do, but every time I get stuck behind someone who takes upwards of 10 minutes. What's happening in the pharmacy line that takes so long? Pharmacist here. Sometimes they are getting mandatory drug counseling by law. Sometimes they are dropping off and haven't been here before and we are scanning in insurance, ID, etc. Sometimes they are arguing with us about the pricey being too soon to fill literally anything. Mostly they are arguing. I am typing this while at the pharmacy. I have a coupon that is supposed to reduce an insulin copay from 80 to 35, but it's actually increasing the cost to 81. I am trying to figure out what the fuck insurance is smoking. Could be several things. They are getting new medication and are getting instructions on how it should be taken. There's a change in dosage and they are going over possible side effects. There's an issue with insurance payment. There's an issue with what they received and there's some back and forth on the details of what should be there. A lot of things that people are getting from a pharmacy pose significant risk if used incorrectly, so a lot of the time ID probably guess it's just reiterating instructions. I know that when I was put onto some prescription medication, each time I went in they needed to explain proper use as well as verify what dosages I was taking. In my case it might have only been 2-3 minutes rather than the minute or so of giving them your name ID and then paying anything not covered by insurance. Mostly people having arguments with the pharmacy staff that they should have with their insurance company. People think it's fast food. Look, the meds are right there. Here's my prescription. Just grab it for me. It doesn't work like that. There are so many checks along the way to make sure it's the right patient, right drug, right directions, no interactions, etc. Then insurance has to approve it. It might be too early. If anything goes wrong, the doctor needs to be called and they are not easy to reach. Lastly, there's the patients with questions or the ones who are complaining about why it's taking so long. I knew one pharmacist who used to say, "Do you want it fast or do you want it right?" Not a pharmacist, but I did work at an Eckerd when I was younger and thus I got to hang around pharmacists. Here if my guess. In your case, your prescription is filled and bagged by the time you arrive and it's easy peasy. The people where it's taking longer could be arriving too soon and the team haven't put the pills in the container and or that particular order came in during their lunch and some new orders were on top of it and they were working through the top orders. Worked at a drugstore. Never behind the counter, but the pharmacy techs would say that it's usually issues with the insurance and doctor's offices. Doctor wrote a script for so much, insurance doesn't want to pay for the whole dose, and the pharmacy tech has to spend half an hour calling both to get the doctor's office to formally okay it. Or if there's some sort of change to an ongoing prescription, or maybe the person needs an early refill, then there needs to be formal authorization to change it. Yay, I got prescribed these new generic pills for my eczema, and got asked if I'm allergic to milk, and then they had to double check with the other pharmacist if they should be advising me not to pick it up until I confirmed with my allergist that they were safe to take. I appreciate them letting me know that otherwise I would've been fucked. I get a topical cream for acne and they have to mix it. Usually doesn't take very long, but I assume only certain people are qualified to do it, so that might cause a delay. I once took up a good 20 minutes of a pharmacist's time because I was in desperate need of insulin and all I had was 30. With my insurance, one vial 10-day supply at the time was 75. Bless her heart, she put everything on hold to find a coupon for me so I could go home with my medication. For some medicines, a consultation with a pharmacist is required. Basically the person with the degree personally checks over your prescription and does a mental check that there's nothing that interferes with anything. Oftentimes it's hand-wavy, but they're double-checking the scheduled drugs. Pharmacies by nature also attract people who need medicine, which is old people and sick people. So old people chat more, and sick people may need more info. Finally, statistically you're just more likely to run into a slow person than a fast person. If a single slow person takes the time it takes to 5 fast people to get through, then you're more likely to be one of the 5 than the one behind a fast person. This also applies to highway driving. You will never catch up to someone going faster than you or the same speed as you going your direction. You'll ever approach cars going slower than you. If it's taking 10 minutes or more, the customer is most likely being an asshat. I've seen people refuse to leave the drive-through window because their prescription isn't ready or isn't even called in. Some have sat on their phone calling their doctor's office telling them to send the script like we will just magically type it up, bill it, pharmacist check, count and fill it, pharmacist check again, and then bag it in a minute, and they get to jump past all the other scripts waiting to be done, because they are definitely the most important person in the world. Some like to blame workers because their insurance won't cover something or requires a PA and yell at them. Inside would seem to go faster because at least there Anybody can step aside while issues are being dealt with, and the next person in line can be waited on. Workers in the drive-thru can't just wait on the next person if the one in front won't loop around or come back later. I absolutely love it when a patient comes in to pick up their scripts and everything goes smoothly. People are dumb and inconsiderate. Sit in a line for 20 minutes and wait until they get asked to pay to realize they need to look for their credit card. They go to the same places all the time and make the same orders and still can't seem to communicate effectively and concisely. They finally pay, and it takes them 3 minutes to collect their belongings and get away from the counter. Every time I've taken longer than 60 seconds. 1. Picking up multiple prescriptions for multiple people. 2. Mandatory drug counseling, which is happening more lately as I keep switching my BC around, and they need to make sure I'm not taking multiple forms. 3. My insurance didn't cover something. 4. Insurance change. I had to pick up a fentanyl patch for my dog once after he got an amputation. They gave me such a hard time. Had me crying in line. It was a long, emotional day that definitely held things up for everyone behind me. You should try waiting in line at the post office. Every single person has a problem. Honestly, if you go to a pharmacy where you can pay online, it will be faster to nip inside and stand in the express line. The drive-thru honestly is for convenience, not speed. These are the same people that somehow manage to take 10 minutes getting rung up at Aldi when it should take no longer than 2-3. It's either they need to consult for a new medication or there's an insurance problem. Those were the two big ones when I worked in a pharmacy. Or they're trying to use one of those good RX or other coupons. So I haven't seen anyone mention yet that the pharmacy may be short-staffed. Sometimes when that happens, they will be going back and forth between the drive-thru customers and the ones who are inside, as well as handling the phones. I was a pharmacy tech. 9 out of 10 times, the customer isn't being an asshole. It's just stuff that needs to be worked out. For example, 1. The RX is ready, but the copay is much higher than expected. They need to figure out what happened because now the customer can't afford their meds. 2. The person is paying out of pocket and can't afford the entire RX, so they are getting a partial fill, which takes a little paperwork and reprinting the label. 3. The doctor wrote the RX wrong and they are trying to figure out how to handle it. And so on. Things just don't go smoothly when there are so many parts that have to align. When the pharmacist fills the RX, the customer is asked to sit down and then they take the next person in line. But it can take 10 minutes to figure out how to fix the problem. Most customers were very nice and patient because I was nice and patient. The only jerks were the guys trying to afford 1 or 2 Viagra.